Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody. Welcome to this episode of the Note Closure Show. As always, Scott Carson, your host, excited to be here today. And we have join us live from the field somewhere in Galveston, Texas, our good buddy Jason Bible, also AKA known as Mr. Texas Real Estate. How's it going, bud?
It's going well, man. I'm checking out some assets down here. We closed on a couple of properties, so it's terrible when your office is the beach. It's just, but you know what? Somebody's got to do it. Somebody's got to do it. So might as well be me.
Yeah, I saw that your post of the wet dog with a hat and a beer yesterday on Facebook, and it was kind of cracking up. You picked up 11 Airbnbs or something like that down near the beach.
Yeah, so we picked up 4 beach houses in Surfside, and then buddy of mine, Sam Craven, we contracted one in the Heights, which is inside Houston. It's kind of a little trendy area down there that we're going to turn into an Airbnb. And he said, "Hey, we got this multi-unit that's right behind Hotel Galvez." And I was like, and he said, "The problem is the only way this thing's going to work is if it's an Airbnb." And I figured, you guys may know what to do with that. So I said, okay. So I decided today I just sneaked down here. I checked out that property. It's literally within walking distance to the seawall, and then I'm headed all the way down the island to Surfside to take a look at these 4 other properties we've got. But yeah, we closed 4 deals this week. We did our first commercial deal, so I feel like I feel like I've graduated. I get to. Oops, sorry about that, Scott. Somebody just called in. Now I get to call myself a commercial real estate investor, so I feel like I've graduated to the big leagues.
Good stuff. Good stuff with that. So for those that don't know you, because we've got people all across the country in Note Nation, and then of course this will be airing on our different 17 AM FM radio stations ranging from Tampa to Long Beach and all everywhere in between. Take a minute and share a little bit who Jason Bible is a little bit before we dive in, because it's been a while since you've been on the podcast.
Mm-hmm.
You were on over a year ago, right after Hurricane Harvey. And
yeah, that's right.
It's been a while. So why don't you share a little bit of who you are and kind of what's happened in the last year with you and your businesses?
Yeah, absolutely. So I started as a full-time real estate investor in 2013. I was a risk manager at a biomedical research institution. We also had hospitals and all kinds of stuff. And so I did that for about 15 years and decided that I wanted to start my own business. So me and another gentleman partnered up, and we started a company called Houston House Buyers, where we bought over 100 houses a year for like 5 years. And about a year, probably it was right after Hurricane Harvey, when I decided, I was like, I'm kind of done doing the fix and flip business, and I want to do more buy and hold. We also had a real estate education company together, and I just said, I'm kind of done doing that. I've always been a buy and hold guy. That's part of the business I really like. And so I sold my interest in those companies to my business partner last year in September. And since then, I've just been buying little apartment complexes and buying little single family houses. And then, of course, we got a radio show, and we have an organization called the American Real Estate Meetup, which is really just little meetups where we get together and talk about real estate and do some peer-to-peer sharing and that sort of thing. But yeah, that's what I do. I bought a lot of real estate. Now I'm starting to dip my toe into the commercial stuff. So I was kind of joking with some of our closing folks this week. I said, now when I go to a title company to close, I got to wear a jacket, since we're commercial real estate guys, we got to wear slacks and leather shoes. So, but it's been a lot of fun, and that's really what I'm doing lately. Now we're starting to get into some Airbnb stuff. Rob, my other business partner, has really kind of cracked the code on Airbnb. It took him 2 years to really figure it out. It can turn into a complete management nightmare, I'll tell you that. So your systems have got to be real strong. And that's what we've been doing, just buying stuff in Houston. We're buying assets down in Corpus Christi. In fact, he's down there today. If this 27 unit closes on, I think Tuesday or Wednesday next week, we're going to end up with 50 doors down there. So just doing small apartments and like I said, some little single families.
There you go. So how's the Houston market changed now that we look back in the last, was it been a year and a half since the hurricane came through?
I think the biggest change, and we're calling it Harvey 2.0, is the impact on the higher end market. So if you've got a house that flooded and it's near the median home price, the flood really didn't impact the value of your property. However, if you've got an $800,000-900,000 house in Memorial, you got a problem, because now that house is probably worth $6. So it's interesting how it is adversely impacting, more expensive properties. So that's been a big, that was kind of a wake up call. And there's still a lot of storm damage inventory out there. There's a ton of it. A lot of people, when they look at a hurricane or a flood, really it was the flooding that we had a big problem with in Houston. They think it's just the houses that were physically impacted. Well, there are households that were financially impacted. There were entire small businesses that were wiped out overnight.
Yeah.
So you've got a big economic impact there, but then you also have this physical impact of the storm as well. And so I think you're going to start to see a lot more foreclosures in Houston. A lot of people didn't have flood insurance, and there's really nothing there to help them out, unfortunately. But other than that, I mean, and even as big as Hurricane Harvey is, I mean, the market in Houston is so resilient. Houston is an anomaly. It's really it just keeps on trucking. It doesn't. Oil downturn, market keeps growing. Harvey, market just keeps growing. It's an economic superpower. So although you have these really terrible events that take place, it just, like I said, just kind of keeps on trucking.
That's definitely. And I was talking with Nicole Espinoza. We had her on the show the other day about short sales. She's actually seen, Houston, Harris County in particular, has one of the highest foreclosure rates in the nation right now, because the banks have stopped trying to work it out. Now to the point where, like, hey, we got to get paid now. So she's seen an increase in short sales, and we see foreclosure rates and default rates in Harris County, Houston primarily, really starting to sneak up a little bit.
Yeah, and what's so funny is the banks have finally figured this whole storm thing out after Sandy and Katrina, and a couple of these other storms where the storms are actually in a market, like how can I put this? In a real marketplace, not like a beach community, right? I mean, that's kind of a different thing, second houses, that sort of thing. So the banks have finally figured out, like, do not screw around. Just foreclose on them and get them off your books, get those. And some of them are moldy, nasty, just get them out the door as fast as possible. So the banks, I think, are, at least from my experience, I think they're doing a really good job of just getting people out of these houses and then just getting them turned over. If you do not get these turned over fast enough, those neighborhoods will turn into just awful places. So we're seeing that. And yeah, foreclosures and all that stuff are absolutely up.
Now, a question for you.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned you went through a bit of a change. Was this an overnight kind of wake up in the middle of the night, sweating, freaking out, I need to make some changes thing, a dramatic thing? Are you going through a midlife crisis, having to buy late model 1990s cars? Because I see it posted on there. I'm just giving you some crap, because you guys you built this machine. It was really cranking, and suddenly you take a 90-degree right turn.
Yeah, I'll tell you what it was. I was in LA. Rob had me out there probably 2 years ago now. And he said, hey, come out to this event and talk about Houston real estate and all that other stuff. So that's fine. So I do an hour-long talk where I talk about economics of Houston and Texas, and and then I talk about kind of the market in general and how to earn rates of return on single family, all that kind of stuff. And so there's this one slide at the end, and I give a case study on a property that we had bought just off of 290 inside the Beltway on the east side of 290. And the property is on Wood Oak. I think it's 7470 Wood Oak. So any of you guys who got access to HAR, you can pull it up. So we thought we were, big badass flippers. We bought the thing for, I don't know, $75,000. We put 15, 20 grand into it. We were, $95,000 into this thing. So we flipped it and sold it for 130, I think. So made like $20,000 on it once it's all said and done. And we were patting ourselves on the back and telling everybody how awesome we were. Well, if you go back and look at that house now unrehabbed is worth $165,000. And the rents have gone up another $500 a month in the last 5 years. And so Rob is sitting at the back of the room, and he said, hey, Jason, what if you just kept 25 of those a year for the last 5 years? How much cash flow would you make? And we'd be netting $91,000 a month. I mean, just, and then he said, well, what would your net worth be up to? And I was like, if I just bought 25 of these, my net worth would be up another 11 million. So he famously calls it the meltdown, because I looked at everybody in the room and I said, all right, anybody got questions? And you could see some people about to raise their hand. I was like, nope. I grabbed my phone, walked out the conference, and I got on the phone. I called Tom and I said, I'm done. Like, this is absolute insanity. Yeah, it's a machine and it's great and it makes a lot of money, but you pay a ton in taxes, and every day you're fighting for like that next deal. Like, there's no end. Let me put it that way. Your end game is either you close everything, you liquidate it, you take your money, and then you go do something else, or you get bought out. There's just no end. So for me, I'm sitting here looking at this thing and I'm like, this is a gorgeous company we built. It's out there. There's actually 3 of them, and they're making great money. But when I looked at them, like, I'm literally going to work 80 hours a week until the day freaking. It just didn't make a lot of sense. For me, it just didn't make a lot of sense to just keep doing that. I was, and I got 2 small kids at home, and I mean, you know the road life better than I do, going to this conference, speaking at this thing. And I'm like, I'm done with this. This is not, and it wasn't fun. Like, that's the other thing. It was getting to the point where I'm like, man, I might just go back to my old job. This is like real work here. So, and I can tell you, and I know you and I have talked a bunch, and a whole bunch of my friends came to me too, and they said, dude, you are literally going to kill yourself if you don't do something else. And so there was kind of that epiphany moment where I'm like, I can't do this anymore. I've never shared this story publicly, but, both of my grandfathers died before I was born, like in their late 40s. Like, my dad's the oldest living male. And so, I turned 41 this year, and I really started looking at what am I doing? Like, if I only had, if I only have a couple years left in life, then what is that? What do you want that to be like? And I couldn't see sitting in another, conference at the Red Roof Inn. I just couldn't see doing stuff. I can't see, meeting with another private lender so we can go flip another $1 million house. I'm like, this is insane. So, there was kind of that aha moment, but then because of how complicated our businesses are and selling them and partnerships and all that other stuff, it took about 9 months for us to get all that, that kind of stuff sorted out. But yeah, I can tell you, I'm having so much more fun doing this stuff than the stuff I was doing before. It's a heck of a lot more fun.
So basically, you're buying stuff to retain for cash.
Correct.
Flow, basically.
Correct.
Okay. So your business model has changed, gone from basically bringing on partners to fix and flip houses. You're just basically bringing on lending partners, lending you money for an extended period of time, or how's that working for you?
So here's what's real interesting. When we first got into this business in 2013, there weren't a lot of really good mortgage products out there for real estate investors. I mean, you had your 30-year fixed rate, Fannie Mae mortgages, but you could only buy 10 houses. Yeah. And then there was a lot of 5-1, 7-1 arms, like on a 25-year AM, some of that kind of stuff, like a 5-year balloon. But the mortgage products were not like they are now. Like, I've got a banker that can get me a 40-year loan. The first 10 years is interest only on a single family real estate investment property. Of course, the 5-1s and the 7-1s are there, but there's also 30-year fixed rate financing, like for real estate investors, as many as you want in an LLC, non-recourse. Like, commercial lending is now coming to the single family a marketplace, and so and that's happened in the last 2 years. So what we do is we typically take these down with private money or hard money. I actually used a hard money lender this week on a deal, but we typically use private money. It's a lot of Quest Trust people. They got a couple $100,000 in the Quest Trust account, and we'll go buy a piece of property with that. We'll use it for the acquisition and the rehab, and then we will refinance that into one of these longer term products. And in some cases, our private lenders will say, hey, you know what? We want you to keep the money at work. And we'll say, that's fine, but we just got to lower the rate and that sort of thing. So it really just depends. But the world is a wash of money right now. And so it's not getting the financing is usually not the hardest part. 5-6 years ago, it was a little bit different, but now it's pretty easy to get the long-term financing on this stuff.
Now, what kind of LTVs are they financing those at?
Oh, we're at like 70, 65. In fact, the 2 apartment complexes that one we closed last week and the next one will close this week, we're at 66%. Like, I'll tell you what, Scott, there is a little hidden market out there for 100 units and below, and even 50 units and below. Now, I will tell you this right now, you better be good at operations, right?
Yeah,
because
that's the truth.
those can be an operational nightmare. But when you look at all these real estate apartment gurus, they're all teaching 100 units and above.
Yeah.
Like, they're not, so professional, what I like to call professional asset managers, guys like us, when we get into a little space like that, we can really get some absolutely excellent returns because most of it's mom and pop. So we're playing in a space where we virtually have no competition, and we're having an absolute blast with it. So
the key about that is the fact is that if you're buying in one area, you can have an asset manager, a property manager that works multiple assets. That's the thing. And part of the reason they look at 100 units is that's really where it allows to be able to afford a full-time plus a part-time person to manage in leases, marketing, in and out, and systems, stuff like that. You get below that, yeah, it's a lot of mom and pop off-site management. But if you've got some, in a geographic location, okay, you can you can buy 100 units spread over like 5, 6 properties or 7 properties.
Well, what we found the trick is we really like working with single-family property managers. So we'll go to a property management company and we'll say, hey, tell me a little bit about you and your company. And there's 2 things I'm really looking for. One is that property management company is the principal a real estate investor? Because they're going to understand what it means, to keep your rehabs at a certain cost and that sort of thing. And then the second thing is, can you rehab an apartment at the apartment, cost? It's not a single family house. So we've got to get some economies of scale, even on our 27 and 10 and 5 units. And so we will not go into a submarket if we don't have that property management company. So that's probably the hardest part in this whole thing. But like the guy we've got down in Corpus Christi, I mean, he said, I started a property management company because there's some good ones out there, but I'll just manage my own assets. So half of his property management company, half of the assets that they operate are his. And then he just does it for like friends and that sort of thing. So that's what we really look for, because otherwise, operationally, you will get eaten alive on these small things. If you're having to take the phone calls from 27 units and then you're collecting rent and all that other stuff. So it's that's typically been the hardest thing. But you're right. I mean, it's 100 units above. That's where all the big boys play, because they can afford to. They make enough money where they can have that on-site management.
Yeah, especially if they've got to deal with break-ins and things like that. Those kind of things out there. Corpus is not a bad market. I grew up in Corpus Christi. You just got to be careful in a couple of different areas. But yeah, Corpus is a pretty nice area and has not hit the appreciation mark, or the crazy appreciation other like an overpriced market like Austin and Dallas are, for the most part. So that's good.
And I think that's you made a very subtle point that I want to make sure everybody understands. Because we look at a submarket like Corpus, and you're right, it hasn't hit the appreciation yet. But with all of the infrastructure they're building down there, I think you were down there, last weekend?
I was down there 2 weeks ago. They are rebuilding the Harbor Bridge in Corpus Christi and redoing the whole port of Corpus Christi. So when it's done, it'll be one of the top 4 or 5 ports in the world, they say. To be able to bring in the biggest tankers for the oil, because it'll rival the Port of Houston, is what they're saying.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. Because the problem with the Port of Houston is they're running out of room. Like, there's no more room for development. So if you get off of Staples and Laredo Street, I just bought some assets on Laredo. It's kind of a rough side of town right now. But I was chatting with the guy that runs the development board down there, and he said once they finish that bridge, that all of that, locked and loaded, boys. Once they finish that bridge, those are going to be the only 2 thoroughfares to get into downtown from that side of town. So we're buying stuff we bought an 8-unit down there for 120, 130. And we're in the middle of rehabbing that one right now. So we're just going to start picking this stuff up, as inexpensively as possible, and it cash flows. So we'll just wait for the appreciation and then sell it when it makes sense.
Yeah, that's the thing. You've got Corpus is a big oil and gas area industry as well, because you've got all the refineries there. Valero's, got some stuff there. OxyChem, DuPont's building a big thing over in Ingleside where I grew up at. So you've got a whole new refinery taking place over there. Just a huge amount of growth with oil and gas and refineries and stuff like that. So there's a lot of job growth, a lot of my mom was driving around my hometown of Ingleside, which is kind of small. It was originally 3,500 people when I moved there. Now it's like over 10,000, which is still small, but still quadruple growth. They expected to be 15, 20,000 before too long. So it's a secondary market, but hey, it's on the beach. It's, Corpus was known for the, what do they call it? Wind sailing regatta.
That's right. Yeah.
Wind surfing regatta. My apology. Yeah. But that's the thing. It's, you have to look in those markets and you got to be creative. Now, I want to make sure of one thing here, that you're not recreating the job mess that you did.
No, we're not doing that.
Good. Because let's talk about that a little bit. Because I think a lot of us, we get as entrepreneurs, we get excited about starting new projects, right? Doing new things and new different opportunities. And sometimes you've got to reel in, instead of trying to develop an 8-lane highway like in LA. Sometimes having a 2-lane road is sometimes easier and better for you, right?
Oh, it's way better. So I can tell you what's also been really helpful is my business partner, Rob, and he is really good at bringing in, like, soon as when we start a company, he's really good at the front end of bringing all these people in. So we can spend our time doing the fun stuff and not having to manage this thing where you've got to put your fingers on everything. But then you look at our portfolio side of our business. I mean, we can literally, after this next month, we can literally turn everything off and just live off the fantastic residuals that we've already built. So now we're doing stuff for fun. And if one day we just decide that we're done, in fact, his little joke is he's 52 and he wants to be done by the time he's 55. So his little joke is, hey man, I got 2.5 years. Like, that's it. My little joke at the house is my youngest son, he'll be 18 in 10 years. So then he'll be out of college. So people ask me, like, what's your why? What's your goal? All that stuff. And I'm like, well, I really don't have much going on for 10 years. Not like I could sail around the world. I can't, just up and leave, so I got 10 years of kind of hanging out here and let's have some fun. Let's build this portfolio. But yeah, I am out of the let's build myself a job business because that was just, man, it was not fun. But
what's your wife? Yeah,
you're right.
What's your wife said about the transition?
She likes it. She's like, hey, you're actually home and you seem a lot less stressed out. And she was, a lot of the family, like, I had no hobbies. Like, all my hobbies, all the fun stuff, especially the last 3 years, went to zero. I mean, because it was doing real estate and real estate education. I shouldn't even say real estate, a fix and flip business, and real estate education, like, full time, and just, it kills everything. You're doing these little retreats on the weekend, you're coaching in the evening, you're doing your calls and all that stuff. And I didn't have any time for hobbies. So that's all changed. So they've seen a big improvement. The home life has been a big improvement since I'm actually around.
That's good. Yeah. Cause you just completed a 100-mile race, a bicycle race.
Yeah.
Or like that?
Yeah. We did that little, MS 150. We did a bike ride from Houston to Austin for, that benefits, multiple sclerosis research and care. And, it was a lot of fun, little 2-day event. And that's, that's a great example. So last year when I rode that, I was still in the middle of selling my companies. I hadn't trained enough. I was absolutely miserable. I hated, like, every minute of it. And I've done this ride for, I don't know, 10, 12 years now. And then this year I had time to train and hang out with the team and all that other stuff. And it was just a stellar experience. And I was thinking about that during the whole ride. I'm like, and I told my wife, I'm like, do you remember what this was like last year? She goes, yeah, it was awful. You had no time to do anything and train and all that other stuff. And now it's like, this is so much better. So it's stuff like that has improved significantly. And I can tell you right now, it doesn't matter, because I was of this thought process, right? I can make buku bucks and I don't need to do any of that other stuff. And that is completely incorrect, right? You've got to live life at some point. There's nothing wrong with putting in a good hard, 1, 2, 3 years, as long as you're pretty clear on what the exit's going to be, what the end looks like. And I just kept looking down this road as it's more work and more work and more work. And what does the end of this thing look like? I don't know. Are we going to go to Dallas? Are we going to go to San Antonio? We're going to, and I'm like, I'm kind of done. I was just, I was like, I'm spent here. I'm ready to do something else. So, but yeah, you got to have time for hobbies. You got to have time for fun stuff. Can't be real estate all the time.
That's the truth. You've noticed you've definitely been using your pop-up a little bit more, going camping with the kids, seeing some more stuff with that. That's good to see. Cause you were adding a little bit of seasoning there relatively quickly on the side of your head there.
Yeah. Did you guys notice that? Now this is what I couldn't figure out is, my mom went gray real young.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, is this premature gray or is it just like that crazy? So it might be a little bit of both, but I saw some picture of me like 3 years ago. I'm like, geez, who's that guy?
You and me both, brother. You and me both. We get a hair for every borrower or every contractor.
Yeah, there you go.
Now, one of the things I want to ask you there, you briefly mentioned about how both your grandfather passed early on in their early 40s. Your dad's the one. Is that one of the driving forces that you kind of taken a step back to look at and said, hey, I can't do this like I used to. I need to switch it up a little bit here. And,
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. I've taken stock of a lot of stuff. And I've just gotten to the point where I was like, life is meant to be an adventure. It's not meant to be lived in email and Facebook and all that other stuff, right? Or another seminar or buying another house and you start looking. My biggest fear, my absolutely terrifying biggest fear is that I will be on my deathbed and there will be something I regret.
Mm-hmm.
And I have never, if I look back at all the big regrets I've got, I don't have very many. It's only a couple. It was because it was something I didn't do. Like my regrets everybody makes mistakes, you do stupid stuff. But you forgive and move on, right? That's not that big a deal. But the biggest regrets I have in my life are like, why did I not do that? And Tom, my business partner, is fond of saying this. He's like, look, life is not a dress rehearsal. Like you don't get another shot at this thing. So you got one shot and you make the absolute best of it. And if you're not having fun, if you're not doing the things that you want to do, then what's the point of building these big businesses? What's the point of making all this money if all you're doing it for is so you can run up the score? Now, there's nothing wrong with that. If that's what somebody wants to do and that's what you're all about, that's fine. But I just got to the point where I'm like, this could end at any time. And I just don't want to look back and say, man, I really wish I did this. I really did wish I did that. You mentioned like the little camper we bought this year. I'm like a hardcore Dave Ramsey guy. We don't buy depreciating assets. An RV by definition it just depreciates as fast as possible. There is virtually no residual value there. But I looked at our kids and I'm like, well, here's the problem. You will know your children longer as adults than you will when they're kids. So you got this finite amount of time with your kids. And it's not, people think, oh, your kids are with you for 18 years. Not really. They're really with you from about 7, 8 years old till about 12 or 13. That's about it. And the rest is just kind of riding it out to as they get older and you're providing some advice for whatever they're going to listen to till they get 18, 20 years old. But there's this very small window you have where you can build incredibly impactful memories. And when I started looking at what would they think is the most fun, let's go buy this silly little RV and then drag it around the country. So yeah, we absolutely took stock of some stuff and I just said, man, I cannot do this. Your kids aren't going to look back and say, yeah, I wish dad bought another house. So I couldn't do it anymore. You look back and what are you going to regret the most? And it's going to be the things that you didn't do. Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah, strong words of advice is one of the best advice my father gave me before he passed on. Is you can't take money with you. You can take memories with you, and that's really what it all comes up is the making moments and memories with your kids, your family, your friends, and stuff like that. And you work just as I mean, we both are workaholics. Let's just call it what it is.
Yeah.
That's why we're good at what we do. But it is. You've got to take that time. You can't burn the candle from both ends for an extended period of time. You've got to take the time to recharge, reconnect, and then sometimes you've got to make a turn for the better.
Yeah.
You know? And you've got to take stock of what means the most important thing to you. And it's not, and if you don't take care of yourself, nobody else is, Jason. You know what I mean?
Oh, I agree with that. And you know, one of the things that, you know, if you can't take care of yourself, how would how can I put this? If you can't take care of yourself, how are you going to take care of other people?
Yeah.
Like that's one of those other big things I realized. And then I will tell you the other thing, I did not realize until probably about a year ago how many people are counting on me. Yeah, you got your family, but I didn't realize how many other families that are counting on the things that I'm doing for their well-being, the things that we're doing for you got to think about, like, your employees is a good example. It's not what you pay your employees. They are giving you 8 to 10 hours of their life 5 days a week. So I can ill afford to not give them anything but my best. So I think it's when I started thinking in those terms, then life got, all of a sudden priorities got rearranged. Like life started getting a little more serious. Like you've got to take care of yourself because you have all of these people counting on you. And then when you get into, you know, let's say your life gets cut short by 5 years. Well, what is it that you're going to create with those extra 5 years that could be world changing? I mean, we don't know. We're still pretty young, right? I think you're what, 40? You're in your 40s,
I'm only a year.
44?
I turned 42 this month. So yeah.
Okay. So, I mean, we're still in our 40s. We can live till we're 90 and literally create something that changes the world. And so we have a duty to ourselves and to society to make sure that we do take care of ourselves, because there's not, when you really get down to it, there's not a whole lot of people that are entrepreneurs anymore. It's such a small segment of the population. And so I think we do kind of owe a duty to society at large to maintain, you know, some sanity in our lives, not get too much gray hair too quick. You know, because we don't know what the next thing is we'll end up inventing, right? I mean, you just have no idea. So yeah, I mean, I really sat down, we kind of took stock of the whole thing and realized, hey, if you're making another couple $100,000 this year, is that really going to move the needle? It's like, no. So, you know, buying another house, it was, I felt like I was playing a game that I couldn't win. And I was playing a game that just wasn't fun anymore.
Yeah, I think that's a big thing to keep in mind is it's exciting. You're making money, but at some point, what are you retaining and what are you building long term? You know, that's the thing you have to look at. And I think about that too a lot of times, because you've got employees, you've got your staff, you have your vendors, especially if you're a big referrer of accounts and things like that to vendors. You've got your students, because you guys have students. We've got you students that are watching right now, like Casey Eberhardt. I'm having a similar moment right now. Thank you, Jason Bible and Robert Orfino.
Oh, Casey's awesome, dude.
Ryan Harper says, hey, guys. Casey Eberhardt says, different perspective equals cash. And, of course, you got the crazy ginger, our buddy Curtis.
Oh, yeah.
He says hello. Go ahead.
So I'll give you a good example. So one of the things, Curtis Ward and I had this little podcast thing that we did for a while. And it was really hard for me to schedule because I had all this other stuff going on. And now we've got this new podcast that we launched last month, and it's literally the most exciting thing I do all month. And what it is, we do it in the back of a bar in the Heights. It's like right near all his projects. And we set up in the back and we do a 4 or 5 hour podcast. We just turn the cameras on and turn the mics on, and then we'll invite some guests, and people sit on there are these benches out there, and people sit on the bench and just say, hey man, what's going on in your real estate business? What do you do? It is absolutely phenomenal. And I'll tell you, a year ago, there's no way I would have had time to do something like that. So I think we also owe a duty to the real estate industry as a whole to do stuff like that, like to do your Monday night podcast. I think we owe something to the industry to continue to bring that value. And one of the things I felt was, because I was so busy flipping and doing the real estate education, I also felt like I wasn't giving value at large, if you will, or maybe at scale. Like it was always kind of behind, you had to come to one of our events and do that sort of thing. And I just felt like, something like that I wouldn't have been able to do, like I said, a year or two ago. And Curtis and I are having an absolute blast with it. In fact, Curtis and Rob are doing something tomorrow that you guys are going to see on video. It's going to be pretty cool. So yeah, I mean, thanks, Curtis. Casey, of course.
Yeah, he actually asked Jason how much fun he's having doing the podcast with me. Exactly.
Oh, dude, it's so much fun. We are having so much fun with it. It is an absolute blast. It's next week. It's next Tuesday. So that'll be fun. Hey, we got Merrill Chandler's coming next week. He's going to be hanging out with us all week. So that'll be.
That's what he mentioned. He mentioned to me that yesterday when I was talking to him. He's going to be down there and hanging out. How important has a mastermind been to you? Because I know that we came together in December and had some fun sitting down. You met Merrill there. You met George Antone and a few others.
Mm-hmm.
Really,
it's that was a very powerful mastermind, because hanging around with you and all those guys, I really started thinking like, okay, so how? Again, that was one of those things that a year ago, there's no way I would have been able to attend because I had so much other stuff going on. But that group, especially sharing all the business stuff, I'm working with the Podetize people now. They're, we've now got a contract with them. They're doing all our blogs and podcasts and all that other stuff. But yeah, it was incredibly powerful, to get a look into how everybody else's business works, how their marketing works, how they generate leads and business and all that sort of thing. So it was absolutely phenomenal.
It's always good I like to bring people that I respect together and hang out, because you end up learning more from others and understand that people are going through issues just like you are, right? And it's nice to kind of let the guard down and be yourself, versus them to be on the entire time.
Oh,
right?
Yeah. Oh, I agree with that. 100%. Yeah, you got to be on 24/7, and it's like that. What's so funny is, and Rob has said this, being an entrepreneur is pretty lonely, right? I mean, you're kind of out here doing your thing. And then of course, the other part of that is, who do you, for lack of a better term, who do you commiserate with, right? Like, hey, and it's not really complaining. It's more like, hey, I got this problem. But people who are not entrepreneurs, they don't even understand that. I mean, it's not because they're dumb or anything. They're just not in the business. So it's fun to get around a group of people and say, hey, I got these problems. I got this. I'm sure you guys have run into this issue. How do we solve this thing? So it's almost like being kind of alone in a crowded place, if that makes any sense, right?
Yeah. The crowd at the top is lonely. The air is thin at the top, but it's also really good when you've dealt with people who've climbed their own peaks and gone through their own valleys, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
How important has marketing changed for you? Because you're doing some different things marketing wise to find some of these different deals than what you've done before, correct?
Absolutely. One of the things that I feel like, I said this on the radio show today, I feel like I'm throwing hula hoops. Like what I'm doing is I'm taking a hula hoop and I'm just wrapping people in the hula hoop, right? Like I'm trying to expand my network. This is something Quincy was just beating me up about for the last couple of years. He's like, Jason, your network is your net worth. Your network is your net worth. And I'm like, no, it's not. It's more postcards and yellow letters and Facebook posts so I can get more deals. And he's like, Jason, I'm telling you, he would just, every time I'd see him, he's like, your network is your net worth. And what he was really saying is I was never really tapping my network. One of our themes, I'll give you a great example of this. So one of our themes this year, my theme personally, is play well with others. Like, I don't think I played really well with others in my marketplace for the last 5 years. I mean, I did, but I mean, I could always do a better job. So if you're familiar with Jordan Peterson, one of the things Jordan Peterson says is when a parent says to a child, hey, it's not whether you win or lose, it's how you play the game. And he's got an hour-long lecture on what it means when you say how you play the game. And what they found is that in athletics and other competitive pursuits, the people that are the most successful are those that play the game with others well. You are what he likes to call fun to play with. And so for me, that's really been hitting me the last year, where it's like, you know what, we need to be more fun to play with. And that will in turn make us incredible real estate investors. And I think it absolutely has. So as far as like what I'm doing marketing wise now, it was so funny. After I sold the company, I just got on Facebook and said, hey guys, if you got any deals, send them to me. And I got a flood of deals. And what was crazy is, I'm like, didn't you guys know that I bought houses before? And what I realized is, like, you still have to ask. Like, don't assume that people, even though they know what you do, they assume you have enough, right? So part of, you get philosophical here, part of living in abundance is also asking. So one of the things that I'm doing a much better job of is just asking, like, hey, you guys got any other properties? You got any more down here in Galveston? We just bought some. And sure enough, it may not be today, might not be tomorrow, but in the next 2 weeks, hey man, I heard you buying houses down here. And then they'll shoot over an email. You look at it, you go, wow, this looks like a deal. So that, I think, has been the big change in marketing. We are also a lot more focused on smaller rooms. Like, I don't want to have the biggest event in town. That may change if we decide to do like a really big event, but our goal is to work with serious people who really want to do real estate. And this is going to sound terrible, but it's true. But the vast majority of people that show up to real estate events or claim that they're real estate investors, really are not. They're real estate cheerleaders, right? They want to watch the game, but they don't want to play the game, and that's okay. They want to be the fans sitting in the fan section, right?
They want to buy the ticket to the front row. They don't want to be in the cheap seats. They want to buy tickets.
That's right. Yeah, they want to sit in the front row and they want to watch the show. And it took me a while to kind of figure that out. But then I'm trying to find, okay, well, who are the folks that are the players? And so we're trying to really find who those players, and in order to find those players, you've got to cast a really wide net, because there's so many people that are fans of the game. And so that's been a big change in our marketing, really kind of trying to drill down to the people who are serious real estate investors. But yeah, it's a completely different marketing scheme. I've also figured out that, and this was a revelation of a couple weeks ago, there is no such thing as a marketing funnel. Like, you hear everybody talks about a marketing funnel, and I'm like, that's not how it works. It's like a cloud. That's really what you've got all these people that are put together in this cloud, right?
Okay, iPhone. It's in the cloud.
It's in the cloud, yeah. So you got this cloud, right? And you're shoving content into this cloud. And when you shove something in here, it's almost like nuclear fission. It's like you shove something in there and then stuff comes out. It comes out all over the place. It's like this crazy reaction. So one of our biggest frustrations when we spend so much money on marketing, we're trying to figure out, well, what works best and who is doing what, all that kind of stuff. And so what we found is when we shove stuff into this cloud, people go all over the place. But when I shove content in here, they may end up as one of your students, right? So they found me, listen to the radio show, they want to get into notes. We're running stuff through our funnel, you're running through stuff through yours, and they kind of bounce around. They may go to, I don't know, close at a title company we use, or use a hard money lender we use, but then they end up over here and they bounce over here. I mean, our marketing is really, and you and I have talked about this a million times, but it's similar years where it's like, you just put this stuff out there and it kind of sorts itself out. But I thought there was this kind of academic approach where you could say, well, a lead goes from here to here to here to here. And then there's this, there's money that falls, there's customers that fall out of the bottom. Like, that's not how it works in the real world. It literally is just putting that stuff out there, and these people kind of ping pong around, and then they end up as, a lender, they end up selling you a deal, you just don't know.
Yeah, there's usually about a 6-month time frame before you figure out exactly where they fall into place. And sometimes the 5 months before you meet them, you don't know that they're stalking you online. They're watching your videos. They're listening to you. That's the thing that most people don't know, especially in today's world with social media. People can follow you. They can watch your videos. They can listen to you, especially with podcasts and things like that. It's not a true enter the top of the funnel, bottom of the funnel kind of marketing thing.
Right. Yeah. And I think when you get your engineer types in your class and they're like, okay, well, what is like the marketing piece? I'm like, man, I wish it worked that way. Like, I really wish I could just spam the hell out of people with this one postcard and this one piece of marketing and do these 3 things and you'll be a gazillionaire. And it's like, that's not, life by design doesn't function that way. So there's not any, you're trying to hack something that's kind of unhackable, if you will.
Yeah, the engineers want to, and it's not just the engineers. Let me rephrase that. It's a lot of people want the magic pill. Give me the magic pills to success so that I can actually I can have success overnight. And it doesn't work that way.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So yeah, there's no overnight success. Even with the wild success that we had, it was still 15 years in the making. I mean, it was, all of our marketing programs and our sales and all that other stuff are things that I've been studying and we've been doing for 15 years. I mean, it didn't happen overnight. None of that really works like that. So, but I can tell, one of the things we realized too is that people overestimate what they can do in a year, but they underestimate what they can do in 5 years. And, one of the properties we bought, Rob's down in Corpus Christi right now. We bought this beautiful property on the beach, and I'm sitting we're on the very top. It's got a crow's nest, so you can see out to the water and all that. So we're sitting there on top of this thing, and I just had this like epiphany. Like, I did not think this is where I would be in 5 years. Like, I just had no idea. But we just kept kind of hammering after it. And then that's where we arrived. And that's when I realized, like, you overshoot what you can do in a year, but you completely undershoot what you could do in 5 years.
So true, man, because there's so many things that can change in 5 years, but it exponentially grows a lot of times. You know what I mean? It's not just 110, it's not 10% growth. It's 10% of 110%. It's an exponential factor aspect of things, right?
Yeah, that's why I keep telling a lot of folks in real estate when they get started, I'm like, get started massively, because you're getting a train moving. And it takes a lot of energy to get that train to go. I'll give you a great example. It's kind of like somebody said the other day, well, what happens, Jason, if there's this big market crash and you lose everything, like you were to lose everything? And I'm like, you don't understand. I've already got the network built out. I mean, we could just start over the next day. But it took 6 years of 80-hour weeks to get there, right? I mean, so when someone says, hey, can we, how do I network with folks to buy houses the way you do, where you just get on Facebook and people just send you properties that are deals? And I'm like, man, that's 6 years in the making. Not that you can't do it, but just know that you got to get this train moving. It takes a lot of energy to get it down the tracks.
I like to use the whole planting a forest analogy. You got to if you plant a tree every day, eventually end up with a forest. You can't plant a forest overnight. You've got to do a little bit each day, and it grows. And it's all about consistency more than anything else. You're going to have ups and downs. You've had good deals and bad deals, right? Everybody's had good deals and bad deals. You just keep marching forward on the next deal. You keep working towards the next one, the consistency. Hey, I'm not going to buy in that neighborhood again.
But you know what? That forest analogy is so great, because you know what you're doing? You're not spending time watching the trees grow. What you're doing is you got the tree, you plant it, you move to the next one, you dig the hole, you put the tree in, you plant, and you're sitting there and you're just all you can physically see are dealing with these little trees. And then one day you just like, one day I'm just going to stop planting right now. And you look behind you, you go, there's a whole forest back there. That's what I think people miss is they're like, oh, they get so frustrated because I'm doing just the little tree and the little tree and the little tree. And I'm like, yeah, but you do enough of that long enough, you turn around and look behind you and go, whoa, I just left a huge legacy, right? There's all these there's a whole forest back here. So that's a great analogy.
Question for you here before we let you go here. What's your number? You have a number? What's your 5-year, 10-year plan? Is there an end in mind?
Yeah, there is. It's $100 million in real estate. We're trying to buy $25 million a year. So, and it's going to be a different mix of stuff. So right now I'm at 8.2 between closed and contracted. So we'd like to get to about 100 million. That's the goal. So this year's goal is 100 rental doors, and then an additional 25 Airbnb in Houston and 25 in Corpus Christi. So about 125 doors, if you will. And I think that's going to put us at somewhere around 25 million. So that's our goal. And then our long-term goal is we do have a fund. Jillian has set up a fund for us, and we should have a 506. I always get them so confused.
C or D?
We should have our public, where we can take from accredited, non-accredited investors, and we can publicly advertise the big one, the Reg A.
So right.
We should be done with that in the next couple of months. So my long-term goal is, hey, look, instead of investing in whatever you're investing in, why don't you diversify, put it into our fund, and our fund, we'll do notes, it'll do Airbnb, it'll do all these alternative assets. That's really the goal. The long-term goal is to build that up 100 million, 125. I mean, over a year. I mean, it's not going to happen overnight, right? So that's really what our long-term goal is.
Where do you think the market's going to go in the next 12 to 18 months?
I am going to be that contrarian, and I don't think it goes anywhere the next 7 to 10 years. I think we are in I've looked at so much data, and I swear it's all I do all day is look at data and economics.
Or hanging at the beach.
Or hanging at the beach. Yeah, hanging out at the beach. And all the data I have read says I would love for there to be a crash. I just don't see it happening. There'll be a natural little recession. There'll be a little, kind of dips for 12, 18 months. It'll pop back up. But I think for us in real estate, especially us in Texas, I think this market only goes up for the next 7 to 10 years. I think we're in the middle of a large cycle. Most real estate cycles are about 20 years. So I think we're right in the middle of one. And I think it is going to shock people how expensive real estate gets. If you look at the build data, the new permit data, we can't build real estate as cheaply. We can't build, housing and replacement units as cheap as we used to. So it's unless there's a big technology disruption, which I think will come from 3D printing, but I don't even see that happen in the next 10 years. It's still, it could, but there needs to be some disruption in the construction space because it's just too expensive to build housing. So if that occurs, that'll be a major slap in the face of the market. But Scott, I'd love to say there's a recession coming and, it's going to be like 2008 all over again, but I don't see it. I really don't see it. I wish it would happen because I want to go to A-Leaf and buy all those houses at 25 grand a door. Right. But, I don't know. I don't see it happening. When Trump came out in Q3 and tweeted, Federal Reserve, you're bringing rates up too fast. You're going to crash the economy. And the Fed actually came out and stopped, the rate increases. And then when they said there might be one increase in 2019 and maybe we may even have a decrease in 2020, I was like, game's over, guys. There's no crash. It's not coming. It's just now maybe I think California is way too hot. That's kind of a whole different. California is such a freak show anyways. That's a whole different deal. But for Texas, man, I don't see it. I see this place getting a lot more expensive, getting a whole lot more populated. If you want to buy cheap houses up and down the 35 and 45 corridor, I'd start doing that. They're just, I don't know. I don't see it. I'd love to see it collapse. I just don't see it anytime soon.
There you go. I think Texas definitely is going to stay pretty insulated compared to everybody else out there. So we'll see in different parts of the country, but I think you're right. Texas is going to stay pretty insulated for the most part. We'll see a few blips. And I think your higher priced homes are going to take a hit as days on market.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. But I think your sub $500,000, sub $300,000 houses, I think are going to stay pretty solid for the most part. So,
yeah, I think I play inside that. I like that median home price. I don't like going much higher than that. And those are the markets I'm typically more, $1 million homes. That's kind of a whole different animal. But yeah, I think right around that median home price, I think it just gets more and more expensive.
Yeah. Jason, what's the best way for people to reach out to you? If they want to
just do it on Facebook. Just, follow me on Facebook. Most of my stuff is public. We've got a little radio show, Texas Real Estate Radio Network. So you guys can like that page. Then we've got a podcast and all that other stuff. You guys can find that by Googling it up. But best way is just to follow me and then follow the Texas Real Estate Radio page. Awesome,
bud. Well, hey, man, thanks for taking an hour out of your Friday. You're running around Galveston, checking out beach homes and stuff like that.
Yeah, it looks like I'm late for 2 meetings. I just got text messages. Are you okay? Where are you? They know I'm driving a little race car today. So I'm like, check your Facebook. I'm fine. So anyway.
Well, hey, man, thanks so much. Enjoy your weekend, Jason. And we look forward to visiting in the future. All right, brother?
Absolutely. Thanks for having me on, Scott, as always. Appreciate it.
Anytime, Jason. See you later.
All right, bye.
All right, guys, that's going to wrap it up for this episode of the Note Closer Show. Like Jason said, follow him on Facebook. Check out the Texas Real Estate podcast and network that he does out there on a regular basis. And like Jason said, go out. Don't sit on the sidelines. You've bought the ticket. Get in the game. Start doing something. You'll be a whole lot happier off in the long run versus just wasting your money on popcorn and hot dogs and overpriced beer. We'll see you guys later all. Bye. All right, man. Good stuff.
Excellent. I appreciate it. Great questions, dude.